Hello and welcome back to Transform Your Impact. My name is Alexa Henderson. I'm so excited to have you here today. Today we have a truly remarkable woman with us. She's actually a professional burner. She is the director of technology at Burning Man, and she comes with tons of wisdom and insight to share. I'm so excited to have you on the show, Heather Gallagher.
Hi, Alexa. I'm so happy to be here today. Thanks for asking me to join you.
Awesome, awesome. So let's dive in. So first of all, where are you located?
I am in San Francisco, where Burning Man originated, actually, in 1986. I mean, I'm not on the beach right now, obviously, where Burning Man originated, but this is sort of our point of origination.
Awesome, awesome. And have you been out there long term? And tell us about how you got invited or into Burning Man.
Sure. I have been in San Francisco since 2000. And it's interesting because the journey of how I got to Burning Man, literally before I moved to San Francisco and I visited for a weekend, and I landed in the heart of a community called the Cacophony Society, which was some of the very early influencers and early pranksters in the Burning Man community who really brought a lot of color and ritual to the experience. And literally from my first day in San Francisco, I found myself in the core of that community of people who were running the Center Camp Cafe at Burning Man and old school, that's where Burning Man at that moment was having like their staff thank you parties, was at a friend's restaurant, and that became kind of my hangout. So I say I got sucked right into ground zero of it since the first minute I even visited the city.
Wow.
I really haven't left since.
Amazing, amazing. And so you were at Burning Man 15 years ago.
Yeah. 18 years ago. So I came from the East Coast, a bit more of a traditional environment, outside of Washington, D.C., doing corporate consulting for a decade. I used to wear a suit and pantyhose, things like that. And when I visited San Francisco, and I'd always been in love with the town, and met folks here, and pretty much after that first weekend said, okay, I'm going to come out to Burning Man, I'm going to come out to San Francisco. And as I got here, like I said, the people I was surrounded with were kind of deeply in some early moments, and honestly, like, they wouldn't stop talking about it. I was kind of like, you people are weirding me out with this Burning Man thing. It was all I could hear about. And it's also the time of the year, it was spring, so that's when everyone sort of gets excited about it. But I had never really heard of it, and I just landed in ground zero, and then I was surrounded by this whole world of colorful community, and my friends at the time, and my boyfriend at the time, and everybody just sort of started vanishing into the desert in the summer. And they were like, you coming out? I was like, I'm not so sure. People are a little much into this, burner. And then within about 10 minutes, as happens with Burning Man, within about 10 minutes of them pulling away for a month in the desert, I had somebody walk over in this restaurant and be like, do you need a ticket? Because I could sell you the staff price ticket that I have, da-da-da-da-da. And that was somebody who created one of the first theme camps. And I was like, maybe, because I was in a corporate consulting gig and I was trying to figure out, could I squeeze it between engagements and get creative. And then like 10 minutes after that, somebody came up and was like, do you need a ride? Do you need a camp? You can come stay with us at German camp. And this was like an ex-husband of one of the founders and owned all these thrift stores in San Francisco. So it just unfolded. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Burning Man. And I went for the first time in 2000, and I went for 4 days. So I walked in there onto the playa on a Tuesday, and beforehand, I'm a Halloween baby, and I've been costuming and dressing up and it's surrounded by creative people my whole life. And, so I got out of the van and set up a tent and went running off in the middle of everything with one of my new friends. And I just was like stepping into frame, into the world I knew it should always be like, and instantly I was like, ooh, there's a rainbow. It was a mutant vehicle. And I was like, let's go get on it. And my friend was like, how did you know you could do that? And I was like, because it was there. Why would somebody be here with a golf cart that looks like a rainbow unless they meant to give us a ride? And basically I just jumped right into frame and haven't looked back since.
Wow, that's amazing. So will you tell us some of like what your life was before this adventure, and how fulfilled were you, not fulfilled were you, and then this paradigm shift that you had?
I was thinking about this after we spoke the other day, and the good thing is I had friends from college who were musicians and became a band and had a couple of its hit songs. And so I had a little bit of rock and roll on the side.
I'm not surprised.
It taught me the value of always surrounding yourself with creative people whenever you could. And also what it really taught me that conveyed later into Burning Man was that, it's one thing to like go to the party, but it's another thing to like be the party. And when I had friends like on a stage, or it was a Halloween event again, or whatever, and like when you're friends with the band and they're dressing up all crazy, then you show up that way, and they feed off of it, and you feed off of them. And I think that was kind of what kept me sane on the East Coast, because then also professionally, I was doing corporate consulting for very large telecom companies and working in a global consulting firm with 120,000 people in 55 countries. And it was a phenomenal place to learn. It's a phenomenal place to have a clear ladder to climb, and opportunities for learnings and training programs, and a little bit of regimen and a broad exposure to technology. But I sat there, it was probably 99, I think, and I was on a conference call, and there must have been 100 people in this conference call. Wow. In beige cubicles, in beige pants. Nothing wrong with beige pants. Not my thing right now. And I was sitting there, doing the math on what it was costing for this 100 people to be on this phone call for like 8 hours in a day.
Wow.
And the nut of it was, we were talking through the implementation of this little 2-character thing that was going to get incorporated into people's phone bills, that was basically going to rip pennies back from the masses to help offset some government. And I was just like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my talent and my spirit and my soul and my learnings and my person and my human, And I wasn't instantly like, I'm out. It took some pivots, and they helped me get across country, and I changed some things up. But there was just this moment of like, life is short, and what I have to give is so precious. What am I doing with my time? And is this it? Is this it? Gouging pennies from people?
Yeah, I love that. That's powerful.
Turns out you can do a lot more, and I think that's becoming more commonplace in a lot of people who are in the working force today, is they want to make sure they're doing something with their time that has meaning in the world. But I think sometimes you have to be in a place where you're like, wait a minute, I don't care. Yeah. And then go running to some place that you care maybe even too much about.
Yeah. Well, so for some of our viewers, they might not actually know what Burning Man is. So I'd love to just talk about like, what actually is this? I mean, because I called it a festival and you corrected me. So tell us, enlighten us.
I'll give you the nickel tour. It started as an impromptu gathering on a beach in 1986 when a father and his son and another gentleman and his son, 2 single dads and 2 kids, cobbled together a wooden man and a wooden dog, and they took it to the beach on a solstice just for something to do, as dads do, and they lit it on fire, and 30 or 50 people flocked over. Somebody had a guitar, somebody had a tambourine, fun was had, and they were like, oh, there's a there. Now, it evolved over a course of several years, grew. They got kicked off the beach because they don't like 300 people burning things on public beaches. Not a lot of work. Went to the desert, and then grew and grew and grew for many years to be one of the largest cities in Nevada that's temporarily created.
Wow.
That's Black Rock City, which is the event, which is a city built by artists for artists. And if you weren't an artist, if you didn't think of yourself as an artist going into it, inevitably coming out the other side, you discover, oh, I can build things, or I could help, or I contributed to a project, or I held that ladder for that guy who's building that thing. And it just unleashes this creative force. Hopefully, a lot of people have tremendously profound, personally transformative experiences out there. They come for the party and they walk away with what the heck just happened to me? Now, that is just a moment in the evolution, because people have been so touched by this that for well over a decade now, they've been taking it out into the world. They're like, how do I recreate this? How do I bring the spirit of alive? So we have a network of regional groups around the world who are volunteers who go through a process and and so it's about 300 people in 185 locations around the world. Some of them are committees and things like that. Producing events is not required, but about 85 or 90 of those groups produce their own events that are following the principles, the 10 principles that help guide our culture and help guide our event. And so those events range in size from a couple hundred people to 18,000 person gathering. So what started as two single dads having a moment of creativity and maybe sparking a fire, you never know when your little spark's going to have a ripple that affects the world, has turned into a global movement, a cultural global movement of people who identify as burners, who are carrying the spirit and connecting with themselves in ways, creating, participating, and often coming together to do civic projects or altruistic projects, and really like the things that they've learned in the Black Rock City event, which is a harsh environment, dust storms, heat, cold, you name it. They've been able to take that camping trip and then turn it into actual tools when there's hurricanes or disasters or other events or gatherings around the world, and have even been able to innovate and take it a step further on how to sort of survive in these climates. So it's quite a thing.
It's huge. I mean, how many people come annually to the large event?
At this point, to Black Rock City, we have a population cap at about 70,000 paid participants, and then it takes about another 8,000 or so staff and vendors and people who are like making sure, and we don't have vending like selling, but people who are helping to make sure the porta potties are tended to and emergency services and things like that. And that's quite a thing to build and take down a city every year. It's also the largest Leave No Trace event in the world. Wow. And it takes place on federal lands. So that's fascinating and complicated sometimes. There's some paperwork, a couple pieces of paper we have to do. Yeah. And we've also become Leave No Trace, consultants from time to time, helping large gatherings, figure out how they can have participants take responsibility for cleaning up and leaving the experience or leaving someplace better than they found it. It goes on and on. There's so many tendrils.
Yeah, can you sort of paint what a little bit of what the experience might look like for somebody that has no idea what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm used to it, but it's truly phenomenal. The playa, which is the place where we have it. It used to be a prehistoric lake bed. Is sort of this barren land, just kind of that dry, cracked desert surface that you see sometimes in car ads, that kind of place. And then we show up and lay in gentle amount infrastructure and some road signs and give it a little bit of organization. And then 70,000 people show up, and we provide the minimum container and some of the backbone art installations, phenomenally large art installations and things like that. But then the community brings the content. So it's uncurated, generally speaking, and then all these different groups come together and they bring their own things. So it's like being at the best amusement park, or way better than Vegas, or the best camp out you've ever been to, and everything is somebody else's creative project. So you don't know what you're going to get. It could be a lemonade stand, it could be a many, foot tall tower and lasers and dance parties. It could be a tea party over here. It's all of those things all at once.
Wow.
Happening over, I can't remember the exact thing, something like 9 square miles of something like that. So it's a city. You need a bike. It's only pedestrians and bikes, and then mutant vehicles, which are licensed. So everything is art. Everyone is art. People are participating, playing. It's the best playground in the world. And it's hot and it's desert and dust comes through, and and all that, and people are hanging out in the shade. And then at the nighttime, it's one of the most phenomenally beautiful things. Just you can imagine just taking every Christmas light that you had and every blinky light and every silly blinky ring, and that almost everybody has got some of the best light art on, and some of it's just practical because you need to be able to see each other in the dark, and everything's in motion and lasers, and things are on fire and giant plumes. It's quite visually compelling. I really
That's
love it.
amazing. Yeah, so
I always wish I
exciting.
had more eyeballs. I go stand out in the middle of it and I'm like, I need more eyeballs so I can just
That's so great. And you've never gotten bored because you've been there many years in a row.
Oh no, I mean, it's a family reunion for me, you know, because we've been building it, and I go out for about a month every year, and it's just watching it, it's really, you know, we've got a pretty tight operation. It's pretty fascinating. Even me, I'm in the inside of it, I know what's going on, but you turn back and look at it and you're like, wow, we built a city, like, and it's smooth, you know, we know what we're doing.
Wow.
And then we could all go away, and all the content's different. Every year there's a different theme. You can never see all the things. You can never do all the things. And it feeds my soul. You know, it reminds me of just the divine power of human creativity and the importance of play and laughter and fun and expression and color and delight and dancing, you know, in the world. Like, it's really important to touch down to all those things that really inspire us as human beings.
Yeah. So was there a point in your life, like when you were going through this transition into being sucked into Burning Man, it sounds like it was your destiny, but was there a point when you were like, wow, I've got a fork in the road, and like, what am I choosing? Or
I had moved with my corporate gig out to San Francisco, and then I was traveling all the time, as you do sometimes. And eventually, it was a little bit after 9/11, there was a recession, and they started laying people off. And I was kind of towards the very end of the layoffs because I had been a pretty high performer. You know, they do this by tiers and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of waiting to see how long I could go. And then eventually I got the call, and they had changed the severance package, you know, where everyone else had gotten 6 months and da-da-da. And now it was like, you know, we're letting you go and you get like 1 month. And it was just so dehumanizing. And I had already been sort of planting some seeds elsewhere, but there was that moment when I was like, after a decade and being a top performer, like this is the parting scenario. And I went and I volunteered at Burning Man. I photo edited the website. I was doing a little small thing on the playa each year. I had a little gig, and then I produced our calendar every year. And I was volunteering for the tech team and doing photo editing and doing web page updates and some of that good stuff. And kind of poking at them and being like, hey, I'd be interested in talking. But when that whole transition came, and I walked out the door, you know, of corporate, I was like, I'm not going back. And they actually called me about a month later. My previous boss called me up and said, hey, the president of our SBU would like to talk to you. That's a big deal, right? And I said, we don't have anything to talk about.
Wow.
You know, we don't have anything to talk about. And I honestly actually took it, you know, eventually I was kind of volunteered. I ate peanut butter and jelly. You know, I was like, what can I do in San Francisco? I negotiated a rent reduction. It was a recession. Wow. I sold a house on the East Coast. I did everything I could to just buy myself some time to explore some creative opportunities, plant seeds, volunteer, go the direction I want to. You learn, it's important to be like, what can I make do with, you know? Yeah. And I could have just turned around to a corporate gig and gone to a place, but I was just like, no, I had to move in the direction that was calling to me, and my heart was calling to me. And then when the old thing called, I was like, no, I'm not coming back.
Awesome. And then how long did it take for you to get like fully employed with Burning Man and like into
it was a process, you know. It was, like I said, so I had I just went the first year, and then I volunteered then for several years after that. And then I volunteered in several different teams. And then as I was doing photography out there, which is where my camera girl name comes from, I haven't done it in a long time. So they call me CG. It stands for a lot of different things. Computer girl, computer geek, girl. And, you know, some of it was just, I had done a lot of work on my own, sort of producing photos and photo essays and kind of doing my own storytelling around it. So then there was a little bit of paid work to produce the calendar, which is one of the very few products that we produce. And it's still a very humble endeavor, but a good product. And, you know, so then that was a little bit of a paid gig, and that was a little bit of a paid gig, but I'd earned a reputation and had sort of established myself as somebody who was, you know, loving and helping to tell the story of the community in such a beautiful way that then I was so honored they asked me to do that part. And then, you know, I also, you know, I kind of made I made a whole huge scroll. I was motivated. this whole huge scroll on like photo paper that wasn't even meant to go through like that kind of printer. And I did a whole timeline of some of my contributions and projects I'd worked on and photo essays and things and some of the stuff I wanted to do for the organization. And I wrestled it through a printer and it came out well. And I handed it to the woman who's now my boss and has been for many years, along with my resume. And I was like, you know, I just want you to know I'm here and I'm interested, and you know, let's stay in conversation. So I was kind of a nuisance. Eventually, I was traveling in Asia, and she emailed me and said, "Just what do you want to do around here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to learn this programming language and take over somebody's job." And she said, "Be careful what you ask for," because that was when that person had decided to move on, and it was a much different, smaller organization and a completely different set of technology at that time. But she's like, "Send me that big fat resume again," and so I did. And came back, and you know, basically I've been in ever since then. So I was persistent, you know. Did creative things to try to kind of get myself like memorable too.
Yeah. So some of the people who are watching this might not be on their life's purpose. They might not be living in this creative way, and so just breaking that down for people, like, be creative, be persistent, be tenacious, follow your vision, right? Like follow the things that make you turned on, basically.
Yeah, and the other important thing was I had been doing like back-end integration. I'd done all sorts of things in technology, just enough to be dangerous in all the directions. But I had been interested in getting more towards like the human side of it, more the human computer interface and user experience. And meanwhile, I was doing like back end, you know, data manipulations, which is great. All of these are wonderful and important parts of the process. But I was just yearning a little bit more for that side. So but I hadn't been able to get that in my professional environment. So I went and I volunteered, right? So then I went and I volunteered, and I was doing photo editing, and I was learning, and I was with these team of folks. And, you know, it turns out I, you know, have a kind of a natural flair for that. But that's also an important thing, is if you don't have that opportunity, like, find a way to go just be near it, or to start nibbling away at it, or to get to volunteer and do something that can help you build up your resume, or at least get you exposure to that, because that can open doors.
Tell us about the core principles, the 10 core principles of what you guys are founded on.
Sure, I might not get them all. You know, you live them, and then when the quiz comes, you're like, what was that one? So there's participation.
Tell us about your favorites if you want.
I'll pick a couple. I already talked about leave no trace, right? So that's one. Participation is, you know, it's sort of what I started with about, you know, like, we're not just a place you go consume an experience. You know, some places you get a ticket, you go, there's a stage, things are programmed for you, you take a couple of selfies, you go home. In our world, you know, everyone's encouraged to participate, and that might be making an art project, or singing, or gifting, or foot rubs, or holding the ladder, right? But by giving of yourself, the whole experience means so much more, and you also respect and appreciate what these other people have done that are phenomenal, beautiful pieces of artwork or contributions, or even little funny things that just get you. Radical self-expression obviously is one of my favorites, you know, where people are encouraged to, you know, to express themselves. And it doesn't have to be funny costumes and colorful hair, though I highly recommend it. It could be singing, it could be poetry, it could be acting, dancing, music groups, their art pieces, whatever we have. Let's see, communal effort is another one, you know, just working together, which stands complementary also to radical self-reliance. You know, it's because when the event is in a harsh location, like it's a big commitment to go to Burning Man. You know, it takes some planning, it takes some execution, it takes some learning, and what we set the expectation that people are going to do their homework. They're going to come out there with enough water, with their food, because we don't sell things there. So you have to bring everything you need with you to survive for a week in the desert, for real. And so we kind of have baked in this whole, like, you need to be able to take care of yourself, to be responsible for yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as that, then everybody, of course, over prepares. And then you get out there, and it's one of the most generous environments in the world, because you're like, I need bacon. Somebody's got bacon. I need a hammer. Somebody's got a hammer. This specific flavor of lip block. Oh, I've got that, you know.
Awesome.
So those are probably a couple of my favorites. There's 10 of them. Go read the website.
Yeah, totally. No, I just wanted to hear what some of the things that inspired you about.
Oh, one it is important, and this is the top one these days, is decommodification, which is our own word. We do things like that. We make up our own terms. And it's an important thing because that means that what we expect in our culture is that people value the relationship and the interpersonal connection more than a transaction. So, you go to some festivals, right? And it's just advertisements and product pitches and people, trying to promote their stuff. And we really work very hard and have renewed some efforts recently to make it so that people are coming and giving of the experience, and that we're not just, nobody's selling things to you, nobody's advertising to you, and also that people aren't coming there trying to make use of this beautiful creative backdrop and people's experiences and creation to promote their own stuff, which is so tempting because it's such a phenomenal backdrop. So, it's very much like, it's not about money exchanging hands. There's really almost no money. We sell some coffee and some ice as sort of a civic service. And you buy the ticket to get in, and most everything else, there's not money. There's not like vending booths, because we want people to go connect and to just meet each other. And you might be sitting next to the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world for real, but you don't know, they're just some dude in a funny suit and and you're connecting over the silver suit, and then 45 minutes later you've got like a new best friend, and maybe someday later there's a connection that comes out of it that's beneficial to everybody, but you didn't meet because of who you knew they were, or you didn't meet because you were selling them something. You took the time as human beings to connect, and that's a really powerful thing. It's really valuable.
Awesome. So will you tell us, in your experience of being a successful and an impactful person in the world, what you would pass on that's really worked to transform your impact the most and have the most success in your life?
Sure. I always say Burning Man is a nonstop opportunity for personal growth and development. So when there's a bunch of passionate people, or when you're following your passion, it's very easy to get kind of the eye on the prize and motivated, and that's super important. It's super important to dig in and to do the late nights and to do some of the extra stuff sometimes. But, and I've taught this sometimes at some of our leadership groups, or in leadership conferences. I've said the most important thing I've ever learned is to take care of my body and my spirit. So I practice yoga, I do meditation, I study various esoteric philosophies and yogic wisdom and these ancient traditions, because I want to develop myself as a human being, as an embodied human being, so that as things get passionate, or when the hard things come, so that I can be of best service to this thing that I am in service to. But that starts by taking care of myself, so I can show up as my best me. So one of the most important things is to really never be, take care of yourself as a whole embodied person. And that includes more than one facet possibly of talent or skill. Like, don't let anybody just tell you can only do one thing in this world, because you can possibly do a dozen, and then they might swirl together to make the most wonderful new you that you didn't even know you could be.
Love it. I love it. And I'm hearing also develop yourself mentally and spiritually.
Emotionally. Yeah. Get to know, we all have some of the same little, voices in our head, and they tell us we can't do things, or they look forward and they worry, or they look back and they regret, and it can eat up a lot of your energy. And, this world, this life is a gift. It's an opportunity to dance and delight and create and laugh and love and taste. And we should spend as much time as we can really drinking deeply, and really enjoying this gift that we have to offer. And, let the little dramas go by the wayside and just return to the dance and the delight every chance you can get.
Beautiful. I love it. I'm so inspired, and I feel like I definitely need to come out to Burning Man this year as soon as possible.
We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. And then, so we have sort of a spin off of a free gift here, which is an amazing opportunity. So will you tell us about that?
Sure. I love this, actually. So as I've been saying, you often get more from the experience by what you put into it. And we talked about what was the right gift to give. And, some of how I transformed my life was by volunteering for Burning Man. So the gift I have is inviting everybody to come volunteer for Burning Man. And that doesn't always mean you have to go to Black Rock City. There's regional groups to get connected with. So there's two different ways. The main Burning Man, you could go to profiles.burningman.org and make a little account, and then there's a thing that says volunteer, and it takes you on a little path to figure that out. We're actually about to redo all that, but that's where you go now. And then if people were interested in volunteering or connecting with burners locally, you go to regionals.burningman.org and kind of go down to where your city or location is, and you can get connected with local burners there, and they might be doing fabulous things, and you could go find opportunities there to volunteer, which very well may transform your life.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for being with us, Heather Gallagher.
Thank you, Alexa. It's been fun.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching today. Can't wait to have you tomorrow with more amazing humans who are up to truly noteworthy things, making money, transforming lives, and just living a life of impact and contribution on the planet. So please join in tomorrow. Can't wait to share more secrets with you and more wisdom.